Hi Chanel, how are you?
Good morning, Lené. I am awesome and excited for today's session once again.
Yes, so today we are covering the age group 4 to 6-year-old, and I think there's quite a bit that we want to say. So let's see how this goes. We might do a part one and a part two, but let's kick off. I think the big thing that I want to first start the session with is that this is such a beautiful time to lay the foundation for children to make good decisions. And even though obviously children are exposed to making decisions from a very young age, and they test the boundaries because they want to make their own decisions. Um, Earlier, the decision making is much more prescriptive, where now they start to take a little bit of responsibility for themselves. Now, one of the things that's so important in laying foundation for decision making is that they understand who we are as a person, that they start to grow in their identity and ultimately their identity in Christ. I think me and you, we've spoken about this many times, but apart from Jesus, identity is always up for questioning, if I can say it like that, because the world is ever changing. And if you have another system in which you base your identity on, then it is always changing. But Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And when we stand on his foundation for our identity, then it is a sure thing and we have a sure stronghold to hold on to. Now, the practical thing, and this is actually something that I've only learned in recent years, but what an amazing thing if children can learn it from a young age. And we want to teach children that they are a body, a soul, and a spirit, and that the one aspect affect the other. Now, I was just thinking practically to teach my children at this age is that you can take an egg and you don't only have to, pause the day and go and fetch an egg. You can do it when you're baking eggs, and maybe they're helping you, or maybe they're helping you to make muffins, and when you break the egg, then this is a good time to explain to them that as an egg is three in one with the, what is a dopen in
Shell,
English now? The
a
shell,
shell.
yes. Chanel shell. So we have a shell and the white and then the yellow in the middle. And the yellow part is our heart. It is the spirit part. And the white part is the soul. And maybe we can explain to our children that is more your brain and where we make decisions. And then the shell is of the egg is your body. It is our outer clothing, if you can say it like that. And you can start explaining to children that in the same way that an egg is three, but it is one, we are also three and one. And obviously we've heard this explanation of God as well. He's three, but he's one. He's one, but he's three. And if children start understanding this dimensional person that we are, we can start explaining to them that what we do with our bodies has an effect on our hearts and our brains, and what we believe and think in our brains and in our hearts will also have an effect on our bodies. So I was just thinking with this decision making, a very good example at this age group is that children might even start with sleepovers, maybe just with grandparents at this stage, but also possibly with friends. And we really want to build resilience into them to be able, especially if we think of sexuality, to be able to face whatever it is that comes up in a situation when mom and dad is not there. So maybe you can just share with us what are the things that we can look out for, or that we can teach our children, not necessarily just the night before the sleepover, but as time goes on, so that they are prepared to go out of the house and face the world outside.
Awesome. First of all, and I want to say that analogy of the egg is awesome. It's practical. You can use it. The kids can feel it, and it can make this very abstract concept of body, soul, spirit very practical for the children. Because, as you said, it is important that we realize that what happens in each of these areas of our lives affect the other areas, and that's why we want to keep the constant communication between our kids, because we want to monitor that effect that it has. It might be a small, simple thing that happens in the physical, something they see, something they hear, especially when not under your direct supervision. And we want to keep that constant contact and communication lines open with our children, so that if they hear or see something that makes them uncomfortable whenever they are not with you, they will be able to approach you and share that information, so that you can then respond correctly and treat whatever and handle whatever needs to be handled in that specific situation. So the biggest component, I would say, especially with the sleepover time starting, is to keep that constant communication with your child. Another very practical approach that you can take, and this is actually quite fun, is to do role play with your children. To say, okay, let's role play that we are going out, we're going to have a sleepover, and turn the whole living room into a whole sleepover atmosphere. Even if it's the middle of the day, go put on your pajamas and put on whatever, make hot chocolate and really set the mood. And then you say, okay, you are now having a sleepover at your cousin's house or at your grandma's house. And then you role play the situations that they might come into contact with. Let's take the cousin, for example, and maybe there are older siblings in this house, and they might see a picture, or there might be a movie on, or someone might just say something, because the values of houses, even though we all we love the Lord and we trust that our family and close friends also have that deep, intimate relationship with Jesus and approach their children in that way, things happen. And even though our values are more or less the same, values might also differ, and we want our children to really be on the lookout for that, and to then once again come back to us and say, this happened, or this is what someone said, or what we looked at, or what movie we watched, and help them to judge, because at the moment they don't have that that clear judgment between right and wrong, and we have to put that mindset and develop that in our children, so that they can distinguish between what is right and what is wrong. Another practical role play is to speak about good touch and bad touch, and then to even say that you have red buttons on your body, and if someone comes close to those buttons, you must make crazy like an ambulance going to save someone in an accident, and then you role play this, and then you come closer, and they must go, whoa, 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 stop, stop, stop. And the more you role play this with them, the more natural it will become for them, when in the moment there is maybe someone with ill intentions. It can happen to anyone and anywhere. So we must make our children aware that there is good touch and that there is bad touch. And the role play helps them to respond in that in a quick, correct manner.
I think, Chanel, what you are saying might bring up fear in parents' hearts. They don't want to address these things because they don't want to expose their children to it, too early on. So how do we go about understanding that we do not expose our children too early, but yet we want to build resilience? How do we approach this?
The thing is, Lené, is if we do not expose our children to the right mindset at a very young age, the world will, and life will. So it is not a matter of, will my child be exposed to this, but when. So we need to help them to distinguish between good and bad. And let's go back to the good touch, bad touch example. Is we do not want to make them to scare them or to even think about it ourselves, but it's way better to handle it and to prepare them beforehand than having to deal with the fallout of our children maybe being molested by, as we know statistics say, mostly someone they know, someone close to them, mostly someone in the family or in the close friends. So we want to expose our children to truth and help them to realize that even though we have Jesus in our hearts, and we trust that the people we spend time with have Jesus in their hearts, we still make wrong decisions. So it shouldn't be a question of, am I scaring my child, but rather, am I adequately preparing my child to respond in a situation that have the potential to ruin their lives in the correct manner?
Yes, I think that's very important. And maybe, I don't know if you have any other ideas in terms of a sleepover, if you have one last thought before we move on.
Another practical preparation that you can do with your child is to help them to understand emotions and feelings and how to communicate them, especially when they are in a difficult situation um, with someone else, with regard to their bodies or play, so that they know how to express. So help them to see and to be able to voice what they feel inside. Let's say they are at a sleepover, the example we used earlier, and they want to play Doctor Doctor. And teach your child to still enjoy life and to have fun and to not be a spoil sport for everything, and to really be a child and to enjoy it, but to be aware of the intentions of the person on the other side that might not be good towards them, and helping to express that, to say, but this made me feel uncomfortable. So give them the vocabulary, because their communication is starting to pick up, they're starting to speak a lot more, and you can communicate with them in a more understandable manner. So help them to give vocabulary. So this made me feel uncomfortable. This made me feel dirty. This made me feel wrong. This made me feel good, but I was not sure if it was right. So give them, help them to express the vocabulary, not to prescribe for them and to put words in their mouths and to live your life through them or your experiences. We want our children to have their own lives, but we want them to where they do not yet know what to say, to be able to give words to that. And a very practical way that you can approach that also is to have a big chart up in your house, somewhere in the play area, with different faces of emotions: a happy one, a sad one, a confused one, a frustrated one, a scared one, and one that is uncomfortable. And then you discuss these emotions with your child so that we can build their emotional intelligence, and when the communication is needed, they have the words to give it towards you.
Yeah. And I think what will also be valuable in a situation like that, that let's say a child is playing with an older nephew or something, doctor, doctor, that immediately they might be able to communicate that they say, no, I don't like this. But then also telling the child that if your cousin doesn't want to listen to you when you have said no, to go to your auntie, and if they don't want to listen, to always come to mom and dad. I think this is something that we need to repeatedly tell our children, like you said in the first point, have that open communication so that they always know they can come and tell us, and that they won't be in trouble when they tell us what to do. Because one of the fears that you've often heard from scenarios is that children do not want to tell because they don't want themselves to be in trouble, or they don't want their friend to be in trouble. And when we clearly communicate that not them or their friend is going to be in trouble, mommy just wants to know, then it is a good solid foundation to keep that open communication.
Definitely. I also want to add the flip side of that coin, Lené, is to teach your child to respect the other person's no, even though they might not think that this is stepping over a boundary. But we need to teach our children to say no and to accept a no, and to how what the proper response should be when someone says no, even if it is for something small. Because once again, this is the building phase, and we are helping them to become mature in making decisions.
Yes, and I'm even seeing with my oldest, who's 3 years old, that sometimes she wants to play with her sister who's 2 years old just by holding her hand, and then the little sister doesn't want her to hold her hand, and then telling the sister, we can give hugs, we can give kisses, holding hands, and that kind of thing. But your sister have to be in agreement. And obviously she doesn't clearly understand it right now, but with repetition, laying out that foundation as the years go on, that understanding will grow also. Chanel, you have really given us a good foundation in building our children's resilience to face any situation and to make good decisions. I'm just thinking some of the things that we've discussed in the 2 to 4-year-old group are also still relevant now, maybe just with a little bit more detail, like to know your genital parts and the real biological name. So to say, even though you call it maybe a pips or something, but that this is my vagina or my penis. And just on a side note, I know that this also has legal implications, that if children, there is an incident and they need to communicate with the authorities and tell them what happened, that this to know the biological names is the only thing that stand in the court of law. So this is very important that we discuss this with our children and that they do not have a fear of calling this a vagina or a pips or whatever you call it at home. And also I think this is a good age for girls and boys to understand a little bit more about their bodies. Now we all know men are a little bit less complicated than we are, but this is a good phase to explain to your girl that we have 3 little holes. One is for poo-poo, one is for pee-pee, and one is for babies. And, you know, if you explain it like that, it is not making anybody scared. It is just, oh, I have 3 little holes, and this is how my body works. So this is a good part to introduce this, that there's a difference between, you know, the vagina and the urethra, basically. You know, coming from your body.
That is very important what you're saying, Lené, because knowledge is power. When we teach our children the biological names, we are giving them knowledge that will help them to make them comfortable. I remember when I was pregnant, I read a lot about what my body should do and how it should work and what the process was, what was happening. And that took away the fear of the unknown for me. And that's what we do for our children. We are not instilling fear in them, in giving them this knowledge. We are empowering them to make them knowledgeable about this beautiful mechanism, their body, that God gave them. And I don't even want to know the statistics of how many people go through life, in their entire life, without discovering all of the amazing parts of their body and really pushing it to the limits, and using this vessel that God gave us. So in giving our children these biological names, we are helping them to love their body as a temple of God, because that's what God designed our bodies, where He resides in and where He lives within us. And our children should really experience the joy of being made differently, especially in a sexual manner. We are different and we can celebrate that. And as we've mentioned in our first session together, Lené, that starts with us as parents celebrating our bodies and enjoying our bodies to the full extent, obviously age appropriate, in front of our children and with privacy and all of those things in place, but really being pleased with the manner that God made us.
Now, another thing that I want to address at this age is that children need to start knowing where they come from. They do not come, like you said last time, you know, from a monkey in the mountain or some stork bringing them. They need to understand that they come from mom and dad. And I think a few practical examples that we can use here is, first of all, that storybook or that, you know, wedding album that you use, and then maybe going to the baby book. And obviously you don't only need to use your personal photos and etc. You can use something from the book or the internet that you get. But because children have the ability at closer to 6-year-old to know a story from a series of pictures, this is the ideal time for them to start understanding I'm part of this story. And so they can see, okay, mom and dad were single here. Now from here they are married, and then mom has a boopy and she's pregnant, and I was the one inside her, and then baby was born. And I think also it's important for you to be honest with your children. If you were pregnant even before you got married, is that you can tell this to your children. Even if mom or dad passed away, or if you are divorced, you need to understand or tell them that they can understand that this is my story, but I'm still accepted. And I think if we can just place the emphasis on you're accepted into our unity, a child will feel loved and feel that they have a place of belonging.
And
So another
even Lene, if you're adopted, use that story. Use it to your benefit. You can even then explain how Jesus adopts us into this righteousness. So use it to your benefit. Don't be shy of your story. That's beautiful, what you're saying there.
Yes, yes. And I think when a child can understand from a young age that they are accepted, it is easier to also understand that God has accepted us. The natural and the spiritual always go together. And obviously, we fail in the natural, and God's grace is so much more abounding. But still, if we have the ability to lay the foundation, let's do it. Now, another example to teach children where they come from is to maybe just do a seedling planting activity. Like I said, you don't necessarily have to stop your day and say, we are going to discuss now where you come from. It is, I just got little seeds from Checkers now. It is in this, they give it every year, I think what is Lenten over here?
Spring.
Spring. In spring. Yeah, spring, my English today. So me and Isabella have been planting little seedlings since last week. Every few days when Gerrit went to Checkers, we get a few new ones. So between 4 and 6, you can start explaining that dad has a seed and mom has a body where the seed needs to be planted. And like we are putting the seed in the ground and the little plant comes up, in the same way dad put a little seed in mommy's body and a baby was made, and that baby was you, and God designed you and gave you especially for us. I think one more example that I want to just bring up is puzzle. You know, children at this age most of the time like to build a puzzle or just put things together, and then you can explain that for these two things to fit together they have to look different. But because they look different, now they go together. If it's a normal puzzle piece with a boopie and the one with a little hole, then you can explain. One has a little hole, one has a boopie, and whoops, there they go together. They don't have to understand that this is dad's penis and mom's vagina and the two have to go in together. They can just understand that it's two different bodies that match together, and that makes it possible for a seed to be planted in mom's body. So don't shy away from the question of where I come from, and don't make up too many stories. And even as I'm telling you this for our viewers, you know, my heart is racing a little bit because we have this idea that maybe this information is too much. But maybe, Chanell, you can just maybe explain to us a little bit in terms of when do we overexpose our children? How, you know, what is that boundary that we need to set as a parent?
And that is a very big boundary, Lene, because most of the commercial books that you will find out there with regard to sexual education with your children overexpose them with images because, like you've said, they have the ability now to put images together to form a story. And if you overexpose your child, specifically in this age group of 4 to 6 years old, then you are implanting in their brain images. So if you purchase a book with a lot of explicit images of the penis and the vagina, you are ruining your child's imaginary world, and you are ruining their innocence. So that is why I love the example that you used, and I use practical things like the seedlings, like the puzzles. Use that to your example. Use a mirror, like we've said earlier, because we don't want to implant those images in our child's mind before it is their brain is physically ready to receive them and file them in the proper place. Because if you expose them before the age of 6 to these images, if they are exposed to these images before the age of 6, their mind does not know what to do with it. It does not yet have the proper file to put it in, and it can influence their dreams. It can influence their own play at that stage, where at that stage they must just still be innocent and really just celebrate the beautiful body differences that God gave us. And then from 6, we can speak about that later, how to approach the images. So the example of the photos is beautiful, and I'm really making them feel wanted and special and precious. They are designed to be here by a God who has a purpose for them on earth. So we are focusing mostly on the destiny, not the mechanics, and not so much the biology. We are just touching on that and helping them to understand their bodies a little better.
Yes, and I think if you relate it to the school order, if you expose them too early, then when they see pornographic images or maybe a movie of an older cousin that is maybe a little bit more explicit, it's not necessarily pornographic, they will interpret that as normal because mom and dad has shown these things to me. So there should still be a balance that we find. And ultimately, follow the guidance of the Holy Spirit. If I don't think we need to like every photo, mom and dad kissed here. Are they allowed to see mom and dad kiss? We don't have to, I think, over analyze everything, but you will know in your heart, what you feel comfortable with, but not avoiding the subject. Chanell, you know that curiosity spike at this age, and children have quite a few questions that we as parents want to answer in an age-appropriate way. Maybe you can just give us a few examples of typical questions that children ask at this age and how we answer it in a way that is appropriate for their age.
Definitely, especially now because, like you said, the vocabulary is building, and they are little parrots that hear everything and repeat what they hear, especially from older children, especially from advertisements on television while we're watching a family show. So firstly, we as parents must be comfortable with the topics. The moment our child asks it, we must not shy away from it or say, oh, I'll answer it later, and then hopefully they forget about it, but approach them in a cool and calm way, and once again use our 3 foundations that we've said: physical, family, future, that will help you to answer these questions. So just to revise a little bit, we've spoken about in our previous session about sanitary products. So let's say your child, they are very curious and they want to pack out every cupboard in your house, like all of us know, and then your boy comes across your sanitary pads or your tampons, and just calmly say, okay, remember we said that mommy has a special house inside of her where babies grow, and every month that there's not a baby, Jesus comes and he cleans out this baby house, and then there's blood that comes from mommy's body. It doesn't hurt, it is not bad, but it's so good because it prepares the house for if there were to be another child growing, or when you were growing in there, you wanted to have a clean room to stay in. So really just bring it back to the physical, and then answer them plainly, as quickly and as soon as possible. Don't let the answer wait for a week, and even if they forget, it is our duty as parents to go back and to say, but you've asked me about this, and now I'm ready to answer you. So if you really don't know, and if you really are caught off guard, and if it's really not a comfortable time or place, you can tell your child, mommy will come back to you on this, just not now, but we will speak about it, and I will get back to it. And that also helps them to feel secure. And then you can take it to the future, and you can say, one day when you have a wife, or when you are a grown woman, and then you can speak into their future, even prophesy that they will have beautiful children without having any trouble. So really, like we've said in the beginning of this session, soul, body, spirit. Remember that all of those 3 components play a big role in our children. So integrate that into your answer, and help them to feel safe and secure, and the necessary facts answered, so that they feel satisfied. Because if you don't tell them, they are going to go ask the neighbor's kid through the gate, what is this and how can we play with it? And then it's going to be interesting. So my recommendation would be that you would rather handle that situation before it gets out of hand, and your child might not then get the right information. It's way easier to put the right building block when there's no other blocks than to try and break them down and then build it up. That takes a lot longer because your child might still remember the false information and mix together with the new information, the little bits that you give them. So make sure that you adequately satisfy their curiosity and their need for the age appropriate situation.
Yes, and I think it is important to open these topics with children, whether they ask or not, but to know that at this stage, this is the appropriate time to that they can start to understand where they come from, like we said, and maybe the sanitary products or whatever the thing is that is happening at that stage, because your one child might play with the tampon and never ask, and the other one might ask when she plays with the tampon. In both situations, you need to open the topic, whether your child is curious in asking a more quiet type girl or boy. And I think it's important that we answer these questions. So maybe you can give us another example, Chanell.
Another big one that comes up in this age group is the whole topic of boyfriend and girlfriend. And that just kind of get pulled out of proportion, especially in this age when they're going to kindergarten and when they mix with a lot of more friends. And now they have a special friend that they spend a lot of time with, and they might speak about that friend of the opposite sex a lot. And then a lot of adults don't really know how to respond or what to say. So then they make a silly joke like, oh, is that your girlfriend or is that your boyfriend? Have you kissed? And that is just, it's way inappropriate and really not our place as adults to prescribe for our children in that manner. My suggestion would be to help them with the physical. Yes, you've got a friend that is of the opposite gender of you, and you guys are clearly very, very good friends. And then with the family part to say, but we can be friends with our brothers and sisters. Mom and dad are good friends. Mom have her friends. So you can have good friends, and that's a good thing. And then to take it to future. But let's save that. I'll refer to it to a little love bag that we have in our hearts. Let's save that love bag for our special friend that God gives us one day, for our husband and our wife. And I believe that at this young age, we can invest in our children's lives and help them to see that God designed for them to be in marriage, but it's not now. There's a time and a place for it. And even just in our response towards our children, we can help them to get a clear God vision about that. It is not necessary for your child or your primary school child, and I would even go so far to say if you're a high school child, to have a boyfriend or a girlfriend. If we take them back to that spirit connection with the Holy Spirit and with Jesus, and to know that our identity is not rooted in the relationships that we have with our peers or with our friends next to us, but that our identity and our acceptance is found in Jesus. We build the foundation for a sturdy marriage for our children. So let's take away this stigma and this way too early approach of our children being in relationships and having to give that one something, a special gift. Let's make Valentine's Day a special event in our houses and say we celebrate love. And first of all, we celebrate the love that Jesus gave us. He loved us so much that he gave his life for us. And then you can just tongue in the cheek say, do you think that special friend of yours love you that much? Oh, no. They would surely not give their life for you. And then we bring it back to that intimate relationship that we have with Jesus that is not defined by the boyfriend or girlfriend that we have when we are 6 years old.
Yeah, and I think even if you think of primary or high school, if a boy or a girl has a girlfriend or a boyfriend, your child has a boyfriend or girlfriend, if you from a young age have explained that, yes, you can have this special friend, but that there's a lot, or the special bag that we have, how you explain it, is we put it away for one day when you get married. Then they will approach it in a healthy way and not seek that attention from the boyfriend or the girlfriend, because they do not get it at home. And another thing that I want to add there, Chanel, is that how we talk to our children about the opposite sex is also very important. So from a young age, let's say your girl is 5 years old, and now she has a special friend of the opposite sex. Not like say things like, we have to brush our hair so that you can look nice for Yanni or Pity or whatever his name is, so that girls do not already at this young age think that I'm only pretty when I do it for somebody else. But again, that you're loved and acceptance. And with that, I'm not saying that we do not sometimes dress up maybe for our husbands or that kind of thing. But again, now is not the time for that. And as we talk them through these things, sure, they will want to look pretty, but let's take care when we speak that we do not make the stereotypes ourselves. Maybe Chanel, you have one more example for us.
Another big one, and I'm going to be brave and address this one, and I hope that it really helps you and equips you, especially if you're raising boys or have a boy in your home, is the big question of, why does my penis get hard sometimes? And they can ask it at the age of 5, and it will absolutely throw your feet from under you if you haven't thought through it. But it's actually quite awesome and quite a beautiful approach that we can have with this. So you won't be able to sidestep it. So let's tackle this one. So let's say your 5-year-old comes to you and say, Mommy, why does my penis sometimes get hard? Because now you've spoken about penis and they have that foundation. The best way to approach this is to start with the basics of the physical of the body. And God designed our bodies in such a beautiful way as to have systems running even if we are not focused on them. I'm thinking about the girls. The menstruation is a system that we don't control. And God has that system in place. So with the boys, he put the system in place to make sure that all of the body parts have enough blood flow. And that's basically what it is that it's blood flow that's going to a body part. This body part is the penis of your child's body. So maybe the penis would become hard or stiff while they are maybe sitting on the toilet, or just sometime while they are playing, they would feel that something's different, or when they are playing on the jungle gym and they slide down, they would feel, oh, but something's funny here. And then they wonder what this is. And obviously they're very curious. And because we've built this trust relationship with our child, they come to us with this question. So the basics is that blood flow is going to your penis, and it's a very, very good sign that is happening, because it ensures you that your body is healthy and that everything is working well. So it's very important to not shame your child with this. It's not an erection that your child is getting, and that's maybe why I think parents shy away from it, because they think, oh my goodness, my 5-year-old has an erection and what now? But that's not what it is. It is basically his body preparing for an erection one day, but it's just his body making sure that all of the parts are working. And like with any normal system, if it is stimulated, like sliding down the jungle gym, or like when you're pressing when you're on the toilet, that system gets activated even if you have not stimulated consciously. So once again, do not shame your child with this. Even if they are curious and they touch their genitals, they touch their penis now, and how it responds, how we as parents respond to it will help our child to have a healthy relationship with their bodies, and specifically with their sex organs, because we are busy preparing them for their marriage. I think it's one of the saddest parts, one of the saddest events in a man's life, when he's been conditioned his whole life that it's bad, don't touch, and then in one night when he gets married, now everything has the switch is flipping, and now everything has to kick into gear. we need to teach our children that it's a normal body function, and it is okay. When your child continues stimulating, because now they've seen that something happens, and it becomes excessive, and you as a parent are starting to feel uncomfortable, then I would recommend to maybe approach a professional like an occupational therapist, or a play therapist. But if it's just normal curiosity and my body is doing something, and this is something magical, then it's a normal developmental phase for your child to be in. Once again, if you're uncomfortable, and if it is starting to become excessive, every time you find your child, they are busy playing with their penis, or they're busy exploring, and it's kind of consuming this phase, then I would really recommend to occupational therapists are stunning with this, and they really help your child to deal with this in a natural, healthy, godly preparation manner.
Yes, I think just maybe to add there is that, again, boundaries are important. So maybe your first step before going to a professional would be to say, let's, if you want to see how your peanuts work, we can do it at bath time. When we wash, then you can see what it does when you touch it. But this is not something that we do the whole day long, the same as we don't eat the whole day long. There's times to eat, and in the same way, there's times to touch to see how our bodies works. And it's maybe just, it sounds maybe simple, and it sounds like I'm, giving my child the opportunity to
Permission.
touch his
Yeah.
penis, the permission. But the thing is, when you put that boundary and the child is responding well and it's not an issue anymore, then it is just a curiosity phase. But like you say, when it becomes excessive, approach a professional person. Chanel, speaking of bathing, I think this is a very appropriate age to maybe start separating children as well. And I think you need to see what is your family setup, and some people are definitely more private than others, and that is okay too. Chanel, I think we have touched on most of the things today. One thing that I just want to add here is that children are vulnerable at this age because they really start trusting adults as well. But because they can know different sets of values, it's important to explain to them what happens at our house, what is accepted in our home. And when they go out to kindergarten, to playgroup, to parents and cousins and friends, and even church, everywhere where they go, that they can know that even if they get something else, the communication is open, but this is what we believe here, and this is a safe place for us. And I think this is essentially why we're having these talks, for us to create a safe place for our children, that they know what the values are in our home. Whether you do that in the end, it's up to you. And these things weren't talked to by our parents with us. They didn't talk to us about these things, and we are okay. But we had to do a lot of unlearning. And it is, like you've said, it takes longer to unlearn than to just learn the right thing from the start. So thank you so much for your time, Chanel. We'll see you again next week.
Awesome. Looking forward to it. Goodbye.